the main thing I'm wondering about and writing about is there progress, in your opinion, being made on coming up with a possible, standardized protocol that could work, if not at all lakes, at most of them? Is that something that's even on the water agency's radar right now, or is everyone still more concerned about just, finding out more about the mussels in general?
So right now, water agencies are talking. They're currently talking to one another regarding what we can do for reciprocity. Um, I know there's been a lot of frustration, particularly with the public, about hey, let's make these reservoirs so that boats can go from one reservoir to another. But to be honest, each one of these reservoirs is managed by different agencies, right?
Right.
And they've all had different levels of mussel inspection protocols. Lake Tahoe being the gold standard, right? They've had their aquatic invasive species program in place for over 10 years.
Yeah.
And a lot of other reservoirs have had no programs in place.
Right.
So, and really, honestly, there was a lot of the reservoirs, particularly in the foothills, were always considered at a low risk regarding an infestation from a quagga or a zebra mussel,
Mm-hmm.
based on the calcium and water quality requirements of those two species of mussels. But the golden mussel requires a far lower calcium level to be able to survive. And so that now put all of those foothill reservoirs that have low calcium levels, like in the 3 to 4 to 5 milligram per liter range, that put them actually at a significant risk level to golden mussels. And so a lot of those reservoirs had to really react quickly to this new issue to protect their water source.
Right.
And so I think that's a big part of the reason why, number one, there's been a delay in reciprocity, is because a lot of agencies, including the Solano County Water Agency and Lake Berryessa, had to completely revamp or build from the ground up new programs to address this golden mussel issue. It was a very steep learning curve for a lot of different agencies. And I think it's important that I keep repeating agencies.
Yeah.
Because that was one of the things at the very beginning. All of these different reservoirs are operated by different entities, and the water is owned by a wide variety of different entities. And so for one person to say this is how you need to manage your reservoir or how you need to manage your water supply, it's not a blanket statement, right? And so, with that said, Fish and Wildlife, they only have so much say. They are, I know, working on a reciprocity program for watercraft seals. But I think a lot of the agencies right now are also talking amongst each other to determine how we can facilitate a reciprocity program on a much faster timeline.
What do you mean by much faster timeline? Just rolling it out sooner rather than later?
Rolling it out, getting systems in place, having dialogues with one another, inspecting others' facilities and decontamination training and services. So much of this has been, everybody's trying to figure it out right now.
Right.
Now everybody's got their feet under them, and they're able to start kind of like, working. Everybody was taking care of their own house first, put it that way.
Sure.
And now we're able to start talking to our neighbors and figure out how we can address this issue more from a regional perspective.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's kind of the sense that I got, because I think I sent you an email like back in December when this was starting to rear its ugly head, and you were great about getting back to me right away. But this caught everybody flat-footed, and there's no doubt that the golden mussels are a hell of a lot nastier than the quagga or zebra. And so it did feel like, every agency was just scrambling to circle the wagons at their own reservoirs and figure it out later.
Yeah, that's exactly what was happening. And during that time period, we were all talking to one another regarding, planning on doing. And some agencies copied other agencies' programs, and that's great. Other agencies says, well, we'll do this, but we're not going to do that. And other reservoirs aren't really doing anything. They're still relying on the old honor system as far as self-inspection.
Yeah.
And a lot of that boils down to not necessarily management decisions based on, what they want to do, but just the reality of the situation that they're in. So, for example, if you look at Clear Lake, they wish they could have a mandatory seal program at their lake, but they've got, around 500 boat launches at Clear Lake. And
God,
so
there's
to be able
many?
to, yeah, I know there's well over 400 boat launches on Clear Lake. Public, a lot of them are private.
Okay. Oh, okay, yeah.
So to be, to be able to control that is, it's next to impossible, right?
Right.
And a lot of the systems, previously, prior to the golden mussels, was based on honesty of boaters. And we, for example, at Berryessa, we get so many boats that come back and forth between the Delta, which is ground zero for these golden mussels, and Berryessa. We get thousands and thousands of boats a year. And we've known for a long time, people are going to say what they have to say to get on the water, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, and it's unfortunate because it's a very, very small percentage. But, we needed to implement a system to help protect the water, the lake, the ecosystem from these golden mussels. Because, I understand the fisherman's perspective, but I also hope the fishermen understand what these mussels will do to the fisheries, right?
It'll collapse the food chain.
It will absolutely collapse the food chain. So to put it into perspective, one adult golden mussel can filter over 1 liter of water per day. And you can get colonies of golden mussels that will establish at densities when they're adults around 100,000 or more adults per square meter, right? So let's just say that the tailgate of your pickup truck has over 100,000 mussels on it. Each one of them is filtering a liter of water a day. That's 100,000 liters of water a day. That's 25,000 gallons of water, and you're removing all the food from it. And not only that, these mussels they'll suck up everything in the water column, but they only digest the good algae. What they'll actually expel and spit out is the cyanotoxic algae, the blue-green algae. And so then you remove all the competing algae from the water column. You get this blue-green algae, and the mussels poop and then fertilize the blue-green algae, and you start having these really bad, harmful algal blooms, which create fish kills and water that you can't even swim in. And so, you're taking the food source away from the bottom of the food web, like you said. You're inducing harmful algal blooms. You're reducing water quality. Then you start getting dead zones and fish kills. So, I think that myself as a fisherman, I don't want that in the waters where I recreate and like to fish. And it's really unfortunate that this is going on. Yeah, it really is unfortunate.
I think most fishermen understand the dire consequences of these things and leaving them unchecked. And I think, and I know you realize this too. Ultimately, I think the hope now is, can we get to a point where we have standardized inspection systems so that you don't have to. Like I was up at Tahoe 2 weeks ago with my boat and got inspected up there. And you would think that, as you said earlier, that's the gold standard, that I should be able to come back down to my home lake, Folsom, and just put in, because I've got a Tahoe tag. But nope, I still had to get the $120 decontamination. So there's redundancy there that I think a lot of sportsmen are just hoping will, you know, go away
Yes.
and have some pragmatism applied. And what, in your opinion, then, I mean, do you see that as a, is there an optimistic, how do I put this?
Yeah.
Is there hope for optimism?
I think there is a lot of room for optimism. I know, so for example, at Lake Berryessa, we will accept the blue Lake Tahoe seals.
Mm-hmm.
Because they've had the gold standard, and it's on our website. They've had that gold standard for so long. So at Berryessa, we'll accept the blue seals because of the longevity and the robustness of the program. I know a lot of lakes are right now in the process of developing and gathering data, developing programs where they're doing the eDNA sampling, they're doing the plankton tows, they're doing the visual surveys, and a lot more lakes and reservoirs are getting on board with these protocols. So there is dialogue amongst lake managers about, hey, what are you guys doing, and what are you guys doing? Because now what they're establishing is a precedent and information that shows that their lakes are currently not infested with golden mussels, right?
And that was a big concern right
off
the bat. Are they in our lakes already?
Right. And, to be honest, these populations grow on an exponential scale, right?
Yeah.
So the curve just gets steeper and steeper and steeper as time goes on. So it's unfortunate to say, no reservoir so far outside of the State Water Project, below, let's just say below the Delta, because they're finding them now in Lake Palmdale down in Lancaster, right?
I've heard that.
Because they're all getting pumped down in there. But no lakes that's upstream of the Delta in the State Water Project are seeing these golden mussels yet. And until they have a positive detection, everybody has to assume that they're not there yet.
Right.
But also the perspective of all these reservoirs is, again, like you said, we have to circle the wagons and protect our own house. Once we get that under control, we can start, looking around and reaching out to other reservoirs. So I do see optimism in the future. We're currently working on some programs with other agencies to help develop some reciprocity programs regarding the decontaminations. We're looking at other reservoirs' data and information regarding their monitoring, their eDNA, their visual surveys, their plankton tows. And I think this fall and winter, a lot of agencies are going to start talking to each other and, I think opening things up a little bit more.
Is it frustrating for you, because it's confusing, I think, for anglers and boaters, that there are some agencies that aren't doing any kind of, decontamination? It is just, clean, drain, dry, visual inspection, if that. Some I know aren't even really doing that. It's just, as long as your boat's clean, drain, and dry. And like you said earlier,
Sure.
they take them at their word. Is it frustrating for you guys? And could that end up being a kink in the hose, so to speak, if it comes down to, some kind of collaborative cooperation? Will some lakes be left out because they have never gone all the way in on, safety protocol?
It is a little frustrating, but also, you have to look at it from the perspective of, it is a free country. I hate to say it with this whole seal program, but these lake managers and lake reservoir, and water owners are able to. That's their decision on how they want to manage their water. And a lot of it, it's not even negligence, to be honest with you. It's just a matter of resources and the resources they have available.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
they may not have the manpower to staff all of the boat launches. We're very fortunate at Berryessa because we have a strong support from our Board of Supervisors at the Solano County Water Agency to help fund all of the construction of the decontamination equipment, to help the concessionaires up around the lake with our incentive programs, to help implement the SEAL program. We've spent a lot of money to get this program up and running. We spent easily over $200,000 just in the purchasing of equipment and fabrication of our decontamination units. We built them from scratch. With the intent, really, honestly, with the intent of keeping boats on the lake and getting boats access to the lake. And we did it for free for several months at the very beginning, November through March. It was 100% free of charge. But, ultimately, we did pass a lot of this off to the concessionaires, and they can't absorb those costs. I think there is a strong sentiment that people do want to keep recreation open and free. Not all reservoirs have the means that we might have at Lake Berryessa or other reservoirs. There is some grant funding that's become available, but it's more and more is opening up. I'll put it that way. But so far, the amount of funding that's being put towards these programs is fairly small.
Let me ask you. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish.
A while back, I think Fish and Wildlife put out they had opened up $1 million to help with the funding of these golden mussel programs. But when you think about $1 million spread out statewide, it doesn't go very far.
Right.
And a lot of that was dedicated just towards acquiring supplies. For example, if a reservoir wanted to implement a SEAL program, that would go towards the purchasing of seals or the purchasing of a decontamination unit, and a decon unit runs a halfway decent one, $20,000 and up. So that $1 million, when you spread it out that thin, doesn't go very far. But more money is starting to open up.
Let me ask you this. You mentioned concessionaires, and I know at Folsom there's a concessionaire that's operating the decontamination station. Is there going to be pressure from them to not come up with a standardized system because they could lose money they invested in these systems? And is that something that should be a concern too? Is it being addressed?
I don't foresee the concessionaires at Lake Berryessa who are operating the boat launches seeing it as a negative. A lot of now keep in mind that at Berryessa, these are the concessionaires that operate the boat ramps, and in order to facilitate being able to do these decontaminations, they've had to hire on additional staff, dedicate spaces in their facility to do these decontaminations. I would say it's not a huge money making scheme. And I think they would, and again, I can't speak for them each individually. But I think that being able to open up commerce a little bit more and having boat traffic travel back and forth would be, they would see that as a good thing.
What has the impact been? What kind of impact have you seen? Was it fairly substantial? I know for me personally, I haven't been to Berryessa in nearly a year just because of all of this. Was there a drop off in business overall?
We actually just had a meeting with all the concessionaires about a week ago, and the report that I got back from all 5 of the concessionaires around the lake was that it is one of the busiest seasons they've had on record.
Really? Okay.
No joke. Both camping wise and boating wise, they've indicated that it's one of the busiest seasons that they've ever had. Now, part of that could be because, we had a full lake that our spillway was overflowing until April, I think. So that could be part of it. It's also been a fairly calm season regarding wildfires. The weather has been phenomenal this summer. I think all the stars might have aligned, but they've all reported that it is one of the busiest seasons that they can remember.
Well, I think too there could be a realization of how valuable, being able to go to the lake is for people, and uh, they commit to the lake. They're not bouncing to any other lakes. They make that their home lake, and so there's a renewed appreciation for it, and there's, as a result, a renewed effort to get your butt out there and have some fun.
Right. And it's funny you mentioned that because early on when this whole thing started, there was sort of two schools of thought. This thing is going to cause this whole thing and all the traffic at the lake to crash. And the other school of thought was, well, it's going to increase business because people are just going to stick to their home reservoir,
Yeah.
not travel as much, maybe
Yeah.
go out a little more frequently. And it turns out that it seems like the latter
Yeah.
theory was true. And hopefully, like I said, hopefully we can come together, put our heads together, and put together, sort of a list of lakes that are, people can go between. But again, I think this is going to really boil down to the individual lake managers and operators on a local level, not so much from a higher state level.
Last question, and I thank you for your time. Is there
No
anything
problem.
the boater or angler can do to, you know, participate in any way that they can in the decision making process?
In the decision-making process, I'm not too sure. I think, talking to state legislators would be helpful to start getting the ball rolling at the higher level. I know there's already some momentum there, but, getting some additional help from higher resources, state-level resources, would be very welcome. I know that there is a vested interest amongst the local reservoir operators to, again, have a dialogue, start opening things up. But the best thing that boaters can do, if they are traveling between reservoirs, and even if they have to go through the decontamination process, is just please make sure that you're draining all your compartments and you're not moving water from one lake or one water body to another water body. That's our biggest fear, is that water that's inside the boats that we can't see.
Yeah. Well, Drew, thank you so much. This was great. You were excellent. I appreciate it.
You bet. If there's anything else I can do, just let me know.